to all you guys for coming out today. Without your guys' support, none of us would have any reason to be here. So there are people that travel a really, really long distance. For those of you who don't know, I used to be local here at Castle Rock, moved to Utah about 4 years ago. But part of the reason why I always come back is it's just always such a great crowd that comes out to these events, and I always love coming back and seeing everybody. So thank you very much for coming out today. As I said, I own Wildfire Retics. Who in here knows what a retic is? Okay, for those of you who don't, someone tell me, what's a retic?
It's your python that it gets a little larger than your basic python.
Correct. So a retic is short for reticulated python. What does reticulated mean? Reticulated is this pattern that goes all down their body. It's a reticulated pattern. So that is where they get their name from. Reticulated pythons are the longest species of snake in the world. That's not to be confused with the largest. Pound per foot anacondas are bigger. So a 10-foot anaconda and a 10-foot retic, the anaconda will be far larger in body size and composition. The retics just get longer. Longest recorded retic ever was somewhere in the 26-foot range. That's in the Guinness Book of World Records. There are lots of stories and myths about 30 and 35-foot retics in the wild. It's never been proven. Could it possibly be? Sure, it could be. When we talk about the wild, the native region for reticulated pythons is Southeast Asia, Malaysia, the Indonesian islands, parts of Burma, so subtropical areas of the world. They are rainforest animals, so they live in the forest. They love to be near water. They are not an aquatic species like anacondas, but they usually will live near water. So living here in Colorado or here, over in Utah where I live, high desert climate's about non-conducive as can be for these animals. So it takes a lot to keep them healthy in that type of environment. Reticulated pythons in the wild, they will start out. So what I'm holding here, this guy, I can get them all. They're very strong even at this age. So this guy's about a year old, and this is fairly representative of what he would look like in the wild if you went out in the jungles in different parts of Indonesia or Southeast Asia. This is what they would look like. This is what you would find. They hatch out of eggs, just like this. So you can see the size difference. In about a year, this guy grew from the size he came out of this egg to this. Pythons do lay eggs. So again, the difference between pythons and let's say boa constrictors or anacondas. Boa constrictors and anacondas give live birth. Pythons lay eggs in the wild and in captivity. Reticulated pythons lay huge clutches of eggs. Reason for that, in the wild, roughly 10% will make it to adulthood. Because when they hatch out and they're that small, these are prey for everything. Everything in the jungle will eat these. Other snakes, lizards, birds, all sorts of things. Until they reach a certain size, and then they become an apex predator in their environment. But it takes them a long time to get there. So, average reticulated python clutch, somewhere between 30 and 50 eggs. There have been clutches recorded of over 100 eggs. I personally, 2 seasons ago, I had 2 clutches of 70 eggs each. So it's not like nothing like ball pythons where it's 4 or 5 eggs. It's on average, like I said, 30 to 50 eggs in a clutch. Obviously in captivity, much higher survival rate. My survival rate on average with my clutches is around 95, 96%. But again, in the wild, you're talking even from the ones that hatch out, 10% might make it to adulthood. When they are this size in the wild, they are opportunity hunters. They will eat everything. Not usually other snakes. They're not usually cannibalistic, but they will eat other lizards, little birds, insects, whatever they can find. As they grow, their prey size grows. So one of the biggest questions that I get is how often do they eat? When they're this size, they'll eat literally every day if they can. Depending on the size of the prey, if you feed them at this size, they'll eat it every day. As they get larger and their meals get larger, they eat less and less frequently. So, as I said, this guy's about a year. I'm gonna pull out one of my other females that I brought with me today. Her name is Soleil, which means sunshine. She is a purple albino. She is 7 years old. She's about 80 pounds. She is the mother of some of the babies that I brought with me. So you can see them and see how they change. She is a very, very beautiful animal. She's one of my favorites. I'm gonna put this down. I probably don't need the mic. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Sweet. Awesome. We'll just forego the mic. All right. So, from that little thing to this in 7 years, this would be an apex predator in her natural environment, right? At this size, she would eat birds, rabbits, whatever really she could find, even small pigs, capybara, things like that, that are in her natural region. In captivity, I feed her rabbits. So she eats roughly about every 8 to 10 weeks right now. And she will generally eat about 17 to 20 pounds of rabbit in a sitting. So, if you ever want to see pictures of what that looks like, and by the way, y'all are welcome to take all the pictures and videos you want. If you want to, please tag me. It's really easy to find me. Wildfire Retics. I'm on every social media channel. Would love to see always love to see the footage that you guys get. So, anyways, Soleil's. I've had Soleil since she fit in my hand, just like him, and I've raised her up. She is very, very docile. One thing about Retics, they get a really bad rap, especially in the reptile industry. People think that they are these aggressive, mean, just foul-tempered animals, and they really are not. They're like any other animal. Can they be defensive? Yes, they can be. I personally don't believe there's any such thing as an aggressive snake. There are defensive snakes, and they're defensive because they're scared. Yeah, I don't. They go wherever they want. Like people always say, how do you move them? You don't move them. You just kind of go with them. But these snakes really can be as rewarding as a dog in some instances. They never stop moving. They're super curious. Well, and here's the other thing. People are like, how do you hold them? I don't. She literally holds herself. Makes it a lot easier for me when they do this. It's a lot less strain, especially as they get bigger. So, but again, in the wild, you're not necessarily going to find a snake that looks like this. It does happen. They do find mutations in the wild occasionally, but generally, so people ask how we get them to look like this. It is selective breeding, but all the genes are within them already. They're within the species. We just manipulate it as breeders. So, what's that? So she's a purple albino. Yeah, so people think, and that's a big misconception as well, people think albino means pure white, not in snakes. If it's a pure white snake, if you see a pure white snake, it's generally leucistic, not albino. Albino still has color to it. So, she's gonna probably put herself back. So while she does that, I know big reason a lot of you came here is you want to see the big snake, and I'm gonna pull her out next. Before I do that, who's got questions? Go ahead. So the question is, how long is she? She's about 15 feet right now. Go ahead.
Is she venomous?
That's a very good question. No, she is not venomous. So pythons are not venomous. They are constrictors. So they grab their prey, wrap around it, and again, it's a misconception. They don't suffocate it. They exert enough pressure to stop the heart from beating. And that's how they kill their prey, and then they eat it whole.
Have you took her to work?
If I took her to work? No, I have not taken her to work unless you count this as work, and then yes, I guess I have. Other questions? Go ahead.
How big are their enclosures?
So her question is, how big are their enclosures? So my biggest enclosures, I brought a set of them with me. They're 10 foot long, they're 3 foot deep. And a lot of people say, well, that just isn't big enough. Well, here's the thing. I've got quite a few of these. I've got a 2,500 square foot shop that I keep them all in. The cages that I have as a breeder allow me to keep them clean and sanitized and healthy. I also have a jungle gym that I set up in my facility. If you go to my social media, I took a kid's like geodome type climbing structure, turned it upside down and hung it from the ceiling. So I'll put the snakes on it to climb, and then in the summertime, they get to go outside and hang out in the yard as well. Go ahead.
Do you breed the rabbits yourself to keep the snakes sustained?
No, I do not breed any type of feeders, rats, rabbits, any of that. No, I can't stand it, so I just buy it. I love reptiles. I don't love the feeders. Go ahead. How big is the baby? He's probably about 3 feet.
But when they have babies, how big are they?
So I guess like, how big are the females when they hatch? When they hatch? I mean, maybe 24 inches. They're big enough to fit in that egg. That's what they come out of. Go ahead.
Have you been constricted before as an owner, or are they more docile?
So I've never been wrapped up. I've been bitten more times than I can count. I've taken, so a food bite is actually, with a smaller snake, a food bite's not that bad. They bite, they hold, and they wrap. And I've had lots of smaller snakes do that, mistake my hand for food or my arm or something like that. With a bigger snake, like what I'm about to pull out, that would be a problem, right? And no, I've kept everything from corn snakes to cobras, and I've gotten pretty good at avoiding getting bit. It does happen, it usually happens by the small snakes versus the big snakes. The big snakes, I'm pretty good at reading their intentions, reading their sort of their body language, and I know what they're thinking and what their intention is. And when I'm feeding, I'm just very, very careful. So, another thing, people always ask me, you can't feed the snake in its enclosure, and I always say, oh, really? What are you gonna do with a 19-foot snake? Where are you going to put it to feed it? And then what are you gonna do to get it back in the cage? So, yeah, no, we feed them in the cage. What other questions we got? Go ahead.
Is there a reason that both these big snakes are females or
So that's a great question. So the females in the python species and in a lot of reptiles, the females are larger than the males, and this is because they have to carry the eggs. So the males obviously don't have that responsibility, so they don't need to feed it. In nature, males will get much larger than you generally will see in captivity. Reason being, most breeders don't really want their males to be big because males in breeding season are not very pleasant to deal with. They can be downright dangerous, and so the smaller they are, the easier they are to handle. Just kind of how it goes. But,
Do you feed them while they're pregnant euthanized, or do you feed live?
so the only thing I ever feed live, and if any of you have stopped by the booth already, you've seen the sign on Alice's cage. Alice is the 19-foot female I've gotten here. Alice eats goats on occasion. If I don't feed her goats, I'll feed her 4 or 5 rabbits in the 8-9 pound range. She only eats 4 times a year. It's not very easy to find a goat farmer that can humanely kill the goats. You can't shoot them because then the snake will consume the bullet, and that's not good for the snake. And I'm not gonna just smack a goat over the head with a baseball bat, like I'm not that, I'm not that guy. So nature sometimes has to take its course. If you wanna see it, there's a video on my TikTok of my largest snake ever eating a goat. It's on there, you can go find it.
Now, so with that said, do you think
No. So his question was, do I think it makes the snakes more aggressive to feed them live? I don't think it makes them more aggressive, no. Again, I don't believe there's an aggressive snake. Does it increase their feeding response? It can, for sure. There's a definite difference, and the snakes know it. So the way that I feed, in my facility, I'll lay out a bunch of tables like this, and I'll lay everything from the freezers that's already dead, the rabbits, the pigs, the rats, I'll lay it all out on the tables and let it just defrost overnight. So by the time I come in to feed, every snake in my facility has smelled it. They know what time it is. They know it's time to feed. And so all I do, and people always ask, oh, well, I want to come over and see feeding time. It's really not that entertaining. I slide the glass open, I throw it in, I close the glass, I keep going. It's not, I don't, every now and then, and again, there are some videos on my social media where if a snake has missed a rabbit or something, I'll grab it and tease it out and feed it, but I don't generally make a spectacle of it. So, go ahead.
Have you ever got choked by one?
No, well, I have had some smaller snakes, and when I say smaller, 7, 8 feet up around my neck, and exerted in, again, it's not choked out, but they exert so much pressure right here that it can cut off the blood supply. So I've been close. I've never blacked out, but I've come close. Go ahead.
How many snakes do you currently own? Just like all types?
Are we including babies?
Every snake, yes.
Every snake.
No, not the eggs.
Probably 85 or 90.
Oh, wow. How big is your longest snake?
So her question was, how big is my longest snake? You're gonna see one of them. So I have 2 females that are about the same size. I measured Alice 2 years ago, and she was 19 feet. She might be longer than 19 feet now, but I don't know that, so I don't say that she is. She's 160 pounds. I have another female that's 19 feet and about 165, 170 pounds. So these are my 2 biggest. Go ahead.
How did you get started?
How did I get started? Well, when I was your child's age, I used to run around my backyard and catch lizards and frogs and snakes and keep them in shoe boxes in my closet. And my parents hated it, and my dad to this day, my dad cannot stand snakes. He never let me have a snake when I was a kid. And so every time he comes to my house and he sees the facility, I say, this is all your fault. You just let me have one when I was a kid. So, but I've always had a fascination with reptiles. Like I said, I've kept everything from corn snakes to cobras. I got my first retic 12 and a half years ago, and this is all I keep now. So, go ahead.
Have you ever had one of your larger snakes refuse a meal, and if so, what have you done with the meal?
So yes, that happens. I'm not going to say frequently, but it happens. And there's a lot of different reasons. If a female is going into her ovulation cycle, she will refuse food. If they're in shed sometimes, they'll refuse food. So the way I combat that is, number one, for smaller prey items, rats and things like that, I have monitors. Monitors are my garbage disposals. They'll eat anything. For larger snakes, I always pull less food than I know I'm going to need, because I can always pull more and add to it. But if I've got too much thawed, I won't ever refreeze something after I've thawed it. If it doesn't get eaten, it goes in the garbage. So, and I don't like wasting food. Go ahead.
What's your favorite type of snake to work with?
Reticulated pythons. Go ahead.
How do you accurately measure the length of a snake while they're just around?
So we call it the string method. So you take a string and you pull it all out, and you just go section by section. You pull it to where you know it's accurate, go to the next section, and just keep pulling it. You can pull it around that way. You can sometimes, like on a wall like this, get them to go straight along the wall and then just mark the 2 points. The easiest way is to put them under anesthesia, but obviously we don't like to do that unless we have to. Go ahead. I'm sorry. What's that? Yes, so taking eggs from a female once she has laid them is usually a war. Not always. For instance, there's a video on my social media from 2 seasons ago with Alice. She laid 70 eggs. She laid them in a big cement mixing tub inside of her cage. Me and my buddy picked up the entire cement tub, set it on the ground. I picked her up out, I put her into a tub. That's one of the reasons why Alice is here, because she has such a good temper. I have other females that, yeah, as soon as you open the cage and take their eggs, it's a war. Go ahead.
Can we hold anything?
So here's how we're gonna do this with Alice. I promise I'll stay in here as long so that everybody gets an opportunity. But if everybody comes at me at once, it'll get kind of crazy. So here's what I ask. I'm gonna pull Alice out, and I'm gonna back up over there in that area right there. Let's let the kids come up first, please. And if they want to take pictures, if they want to see them, totally fine. They can pet her, it's all fine. I'll stay in here as long as I need to, so that everybody gets an opportunity. But once you have the opportunity, if you guys can head out the door so other people can make room, that would be great. Go ahead.
Why don't you leave the eggs with the mother's milk?
So that's a good question. So you are going to significantly reduce the success rate of your clutch because you're not controlling. So when pythons lay eggs, they lay them in a big mouse, and then the female will wrap all around them, right? But pythons can't thermoregulate their own body temperature, right? So the eggs won't incubate at a consistent temperature. You'll get incubation issues with the offspring, which can cause defects. You'll get some that just won't make it. And again, when we're breeding in captivity, we're usually breeding for a specific outcome, and you have no idea what's inside that egg until it hatches out. So we take the eggs, we put them in the incubator, that way we can control all the variables. Go ahead. So it depends on the year. So in 2022, normally on average I will do between 5 and 7 pairings a year, and then 3 to 4 of those pairings will actually result in eggs. In 2022, I did 7 pairings. And all 7 pairings resulted in eggs. I ended up with 282 eggs that season, which I literally threw a lot of the eggs to the monitors straight away. I just didn't even incubate them. But I hatched out almost 200 babies last year, and I've still got about 50 of them this year.
So like, I feel like it's not really common to like see people who don't read it. And so if you have like 200 something eggs or whatever, and you're not the only person who reads it, I'm like, yeah, stores have them, but I feel like you go to like quite a few reptile stores and never really see them. What do you like? I know you said you like put some of them in the lockers, but like how many of these are you like truly selling for the next year?
So I keep something from every clutch, but I usually keep one or two out of every clutch, right? Which is why I have to. As far as selling them, so that's why this last season I did 0 parents. I didn't do a single parent because I still have animals left over. And so I will wait and we'll see how the rest of this year goes. I may not even do any parents this year. It'll just depend. I don't like making 100 a year, but between online sales and shows, I can reasonably expect to sell about 100 things. Go ahead.
I thought invader, is it like a fridge or is it like a big room since they're such
So
big
it
lunches?
is a glass door recycled beverage, like commercial beverage dispenser that I ran heat tape inside of and put a thermostat plug in. It's perfect. Go ahead.
Do some of the pythons have teeth?
All pythons have teeth. So they actually have multiple rows of teeth. They are recurved, so when they bite, they can hold on to things, which is why a defensive bite from a python is one of the worst bites you can take. If they bite and pull back, it's like a saw blade on your skin. Go ahead.
Oh, have you ever been hospitalized or had to go to the hospital because of snake bite?
No, I've never been hospitalized because of snake bite. Any other questions?
And so what do you have everything from the pharmacies to cobras?
Yes.
So like what are like some of the snakes and like other
So I've kept copperheads. I had an 11-foot Eastern mama, and I had a 3 pair of the West African blue eyes. Go ahead. Yes, her name is Diamond. In the enclosure at my booth, she's a bright silver snake, and in close second is Alice from about to pull out. Yep.
How long do the eggs take to hatch?
Good question. Guess how long the eggs take to hatch? So once we take the eggs from the female, they go into the incubator for roughly 90 days. Minimum 80, 85, but anywhere in that range of 80 to 90 days, they start hatching out. So, and I always wait until at least one of the snakes pips, which means it cuts the egg with its egg tooth on its own, before I start cutting the egg open. Go ahead. Yeah, I mean, my guy Riley over here, how many times have you been bit since starting to work for me?
I don't count.
Yeah.
All babies in a very mild experience, nothing bad. Yeah.
Go ahead.
When you got the eggs and you remove them from the collection, I haven't really been understanding why they mark one side. Are you marking the embryo side?
Yes.
You want that side up?
Yes. So his question was, why do we mark eggs when we pull them? So when we candle them, which means you take a flashlight and stick it on there, you can see where the embryo is inside the egg. If you roll the egg from where because the embryo will attach to a certain side of the egg. Once it attaches, if you roll it, it won't make it. The egg will go back. So that way we make sure we don't roll it and keep the embryo right side up.
So, you're gonna pull it off and you roll it, you just put it right back.
So when we go to pull them, they're so fresh that it's okay. The embryos usually haven't attached, but that's also part of why when he asked earlier why we take the eggs, we take them as soon as we see the clutch is laid versus leaving them, because if we leave them and they sit in a pile, not only are they stuck together way, way harder, but the embryos will attach, and then we might mess it up. We'll pull more apart. All right, I'm gonna pull Alice out. Like I said, just please don't come at me all at once. You guys can kind of form a line going back this way, and then as you have a chance to, again, you can take pictures with it, you can pet her, you can ask whatever questions you want, but after you've had your opportunity, if you can head out the door so we can make a little bit more space, that would be fantastic. Thank you very much, guys, for listening.
All right, start the line.
All right, guys. You can pet her.
I don't want to. She won't play.
Pull the rest of her body out.
You're not asking me, I'm on
Oh! Time to get me.
Is that?
Yes, you can. I'm gonna stand this up just yeah, it goes down to a little narrow.
11 years old. 11 years old.
It's like the same. Why aren't you that big?
Rattlesnake kind of. With that pattern on the back, like a diamond back.
What's that?
Hey, Charlotte.
She sheds probably 4 or 5 times a year.
Becker.
Brothers now?
Snake has ever seen that. Let's go with other kids' cabin. It's probably she feels good about having something to push against. She likes that, but just be careful not to step on it.
Okay.
They kind of like something to like.
Yeah.
There's a snake in the back.
Feel secure.
Are you done?
We gotta do it pretty quickly because we gotta make some.
No.
I can't even pick her all the way up all the way by myself.
I mean, with how heavy they get, no wonder you guys, does everyone just have muscles?
Muscles, and you just learn how to move with them and kind of how to direct them. So,
You don't need yoga.
oh yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. I gotta go to the gym so I can deal with these guys.
All right, Ellen, you done? I would go, yeah. We take a picture.
No problem.
Yeah,
All right, stay
Owen.
safe. Good job, buddy.
Owen.
Thank you very
You want a
much.
chair?
There she is. What's that?
You want a chair?
No, I'm good.
Thank you.
This is okay.
Was that cool?
How you going?
Look at her head.
Look at me, guys.
Just as big as your head.
She likes you. It's kind of like
You said these guys out in the wild, the mints are like 35 feet.
Yeah, I mean, there are reports of these snakes eating people. It does happen.
This is all like muscle too.
Pure muscle. Pure muscle.
And then like how often does